But first, Vice President Kamala Harris has enjoyed the full weight of the US media behind her, which has created an appearance that she is significantly ahead of Donald Trump. But cracks are starting to appear. Some more brave voices in the media have started asking why Harris won't do any substantive interviews.
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the Vice President and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there.
But Michael, you know, a campaign rally is not a press conference.
It's going to be inclusive.
Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, you know, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump, and she said last week, we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on and what this campaign is going to be focused on is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she
commit to a press conference this week?
This past week. That's why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that throughout the rest of
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to, you know, belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
And it isn't just political pundits noticing that Harris is trying to win this election by literally hiding from scrutiny. ESPN host Stephen Smith says that Harris has got his vote already, but has called on her to do the right thing and be present for interviews.
Joe Biden stepped aside as the presumptive Democratic nominee on July 21st. Okay? Now I'm going to look at this right now. I'm looking at my calendar because I just want to make sure. You know, July 21st was a Sunday. We've had 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 1 day since Joe Biden stepped aside. The only damn place we've seen Kamala Harris is at pep rallies. And it can't just be the conservatives. Right is right. I'm talking to my sister here. Come on now. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. You got my vote. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. What you hiding for?
Harris has plenty of policy inconsistencies which need to be probed by reporters. Her record as a hardline prosecutor is an issue, as well as contradictions between how she's dealt with the border crisis between 2020 and today. We can't do that if she hides. And even if you detest Trump, you should be furious about the prospect of somebody waltzing into the White House with barely any scrutiny just because the media hates the other candidate. That isn't democracy. That is just a farce. Well, joining me on the show this week is the Australian's Darren Davidson and Sky News contributor James Bolt. Darren, let's start with you. I think Joe Biden as well did in the last election. There was all these notions of he was hiding in the basement. It's a proven tactic for the Democrats. But even her own supporters now are saying, even if it works, even if politically it is advantageous, it's not really the right thing to do.
It's not. Biden was hiding behind COVID, and that's how he was able to do that campaign from the basement. Obviously, COVID is no longer an issue for anybody, and that reality's gone. I think it's really bizarre that she's all but telling Americans that they'll have to elect her to find out what she really believes in. That's bad enough on domestic policy, but on foreign policy, that's really, really dangerous at the moment that we're in right now, because the world's never been more dangerous than it is right now for many, many, many years. The Americans shouldn't have to read between the tea leaves to find out what her position is on the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, China's island grabs in the South China Sea, Russia, Ukraine, Iran's nuclear build-up, and I could go on and on and on. So it really is beholden on her to come out and do some media interviews. And what makes it even worse, actually the grabs he ran were good. The CNN anchor was pretty robust there, but generally the media in the States has given Kamala a free ride.
I agree.
So that makes this situation even worse.
I agree. And James, look, those were the rare clips that we found to kind of show this level of scrutiny. I will note that The Guardian has made this point. Lots of other journalists have made the point that she does appear to be hiding. But others in the press just seem so just overwhelmed by joy that the polls are now going in their favour, that they're turning a blind eye, and they don't want her to have this scrutiny because they need her to win.
That's the thing. And to be honest, to be fair to Kamala Harris, she did actually sit down for an interview today. And I don't know if you guys saw the hard-hitting journalist that she finally let ask the tough questions. Her running mate, Tim Walz, is the person asking her all the questions that the media haven't been able to ask her yet. So good on for Kamala for finally sitting down to a big interview. But you're right. It's simply not enough. It should be 100% of journalists should be standing up there saying, we need to hear from Kamala. And the only reason that you wouldn't is because you think that the ultimate goal of beating Donald Trump is a more worthy goal than your own journalistic importance. And this really means for me that the election is going to be a referendum on how powerful the media still is. Because if this media can obfuscate Kamala Harris, say that she's a candidate of change, even though she was vice president for 4 years, and the borders are, and that the candidate who couldn't even make it to the primaries in her own state of California in 2020 is suddenly popular with voters. If that candidate can win off the media doing those sort of PR for her, then the media is far more powerful than I think it is.
Yeah, and James, I mean, on your point as well, the campaign saying let's commit to one sit-down interview. It's not the same as a press conference where people are firing questions. There's the chaos. And Darren, let's bring you in because I think Kamala Harris doesn't have the best track record of having concise answers. And yes, Donald Trump has his weaknesses that everybody knows. And I think he gets more criticism than any other candidate out there, probably in history, probably more unfair criticism as well. But they know that she has this verbal weakness where sometimes she waffles, she talks about abstract notions in a way that are a bit cringeworthy. That's probably why they would prefer a more controlled sit-down than a press conference.
Yeah. I mean, the word salads are unbearable. The point about Trump is, he often shoots from the hip on foreign policy. His comments about dictators are pretty witless sometimes. But actually, his first-term record, particularly on Iran and the Middle East, was actually pretty favourable and pretty good and strong. Particularly compared to Biden and Harris and their performance in the foreign policy arenas. So from that perspective, Americans deserve to hear how Kamala will keep the country safe in such a treacherous world.